we get in day out. It's all about the insurance. The insurance what am I covered under my insurance? It is not an insurance policy. There's no insurer behind it. It's funded for 6 million comes in from team subscriptions. Your handball contributions will contribute towards that, and then the gates, so central council and the percentage of the gates each year go in. It costs 9 million a year to effectively run the fund, and that's made up of largely just over 8 million on average in claims are paid in any given year over the last couple of years. We would receive on average over 6,000 claims, so it's quite busy in that. But the primary lesson for you is just it's not an insurance policy, it's a benefit fund. It's only ever been in place to assist players who are injured and who they have no other forms of claiming from. And that was always its aim. It's never been anything else. A lot we get asked to, is there any obligation on clubs to cover expenses and that? There's no such thing as well. When you take part in sport, you take part at your own risk, and it's each player's responsibility to ensure that they have cover that meets the needs. If you've got a claim, and you'll see just when I talk shortly just about the benefits, it will not cover you for everything, and it's just to be aware of that too. Who's covered? Registered playing members injured during a supervised club training session, an official fixture or a sanctioned challenge match. It's important there that the registered playing members are covered. We've uncovered many cases over the last couple of years of players who are not registered members of the association, and there's been a bit of a clampdown on that, and also covering claims which didn't happen either GAA or other outside of GAA. We're not here to fund claims that happen in other sports. It's primarily for you get an accidental bodily injury during the course, you could submit a claim. Just following on from that, and then to the next slide in relation there, what is covered. And the primary benefits are the medical and dental expenses. There's 4,500 maximum that can be claimed there, and an excess applies. So the first €100 is not covered. So simply, if you had a consultation and a doctor's visit amounting to €300 for those receipts, the €100 comes off that, and your claim would be worth €200. Same applies for the dental expenses. There's inner limits too in terms of MRI scans. They're covered up to 300 per scan. There's no physiotherapy covered unless a player undergoes surgery. That's an important point. In previous times, going back historically, physio would have been covered, but it had to be taken out as a standalone benefit. Going back now nearly 10 years, primarily because the fund wasn't going to last if we had continued with that. Loss of wages there is the other benefit there. Weeks 2 to 26 are covered, up to a maximum of €300 max per week. That means then that week 1 is the excess there. So effectively to claim, you have to be out of work for 14 consecutive days. The first week is the excess 7 days, and the second week then a full week for the claim to hit in. Likewise, and what I was saying earlier, it's only unrecoverable benefits that are covered. So in the instance of medical expenses, if you've got VHI cover, Leia healthcare, you need to make a claim for them first, and the injury fund is there to pick up benefits that are not covered elsewhere. Likewise, loss of wages, you must make a claim through the Department of Social Protection for illness benefit, and that's taken into account of as well during the assessment of the claim. So if you're earning, say, 800 or €600 per week, and your social welfare benefit is €200 per week, you're at a loss there of €400, but the fund will only support you up to 300 max per week, weeks for 2 to 26. Do exclusions apply? Yes, they do. They're detailed in the summary documentation, and we can provide that to you. The intention will be that we will create an injury benefit fund standalone page with more information on the GAA handball website. But the key exclusion is that all claims must be reported within 60 days of the date of injury. If the claim is reported outside of that, it's not accepted. That's to allow us to control the number of claims coming in under the fund, and in order that we can sustain the fund going forward. Obviously, this year is a big impact on that, in terms of, if you think that the 3 million there that comes from the gates, and not knowing what's going to become of Championship, if any, 2020, the fund is, and that, so there's a lot to be considered for this year. But there are exclusions. They're listed. If you're not a registered member at the time of the injury, the claim will be declined, and we can provide further information in relation to that. And then that's just what we've just streamlined the process for handball claims. DWF claims are the claims handlers for the main injury benefit fund. They've only been in place since last December. It's in a phased basis that we're uploading the claims onto the system in terms of each section. Handball claims for the moment are being looked after directly by myself. So my email address is there, and if you have any queries or further information on it, you can email me directly there. And as you say, we will be providing updated information on the handball going forward, so I'll just hand you over to Sinead.
Thanks,
any
Ciara.
questions on the fund?
Thanks, Ciara. Hi everybody. We can do questions at the end, and just mainly a lot of the questions that were coming through that were submitted in advance were, what's the difference between the injury fund and the liability insurance? So as Ciara has covered, the injury fund is not insurance. It is only in place for registered members who suffer an accidental injury if they don't have any other cover in place, whereas I'll now go through the liability and I'll touch on the property. So the policy documents are on GAA.ie. I'll share them with Pádraig so he can put them up on GAA Handball website. So there's a property policy there and there's a liability policy. So it'd be important that you download them and read them, because it has a lot of the terms and conditions of cover on it. But first and foremost, I guess, on the liability insurance, like, what is it? So liability insurance provides an indemnity for the legal liability of the GAA Handball Club. It doesn't cover players, it doesn't cover members, it doesn't cover third-party users. The insured is the club. The club either owns property, so you own your own handball court, or you're an organiser of GAA handball in a community handball court, in a GAA owned handball court, whatever. But as either a property owner or a handball club who organises handball activities, the insurance indemnifies the club if a person, whilst on our property, suffers a bodily injury or their property is damaged, and they hold that the club was negligent in some way for that happening. So there's a load of law around how you could be negligent. You owe legal duties of care to persons who enter our properties or engage in our activities. What you'll probably most be familiar with would be around child welfare and governance there in relation to that. But there's health and safety law if persons are undertaking work on behalf of the club, employers law, there's Occupiers Liability Act. And that's what the liability insurance is. It's if somebody, member, non-member, third-party user, is involved in an activity that's organised by a GAA handball club or is on our property, they suffer an injury, they deem that the club is in some way negligent for that injury that they suffered, and then they decide to sue you for personal injury compensation. They then will say whatever way they held you were negligent, but the insurance policy, when you get that solicitor's letter, the insurers will investigate the claim. They'll confirm an indemnity to you once you're in compliance with, the terms of the official guide and everything like that. And that's where insurance takes over. So that's what liability insurance is. There's an excess on the liability insurance. So when a claim is notified, investigated, indemnity is confirmed, the club is responsible for the policy excess. And after that, the insurers appoint solicitors and they handle all the costs, including if we're unsuccessful and an award has to be paid to the injured party. So hope that maybe makes sense there to some of the queries that came in. when we're declaring what we are to our insurers, this is what we are. Our activities are that we're first and foremost a sports and cultural organisation where our core objective is the advancement of Gaelic games, football, hurling, handball, rounders, camogie, and that we are a property owner. So that's the business description, for want of a better word, of the GAA. Because of our claims experience, the insurers underwrite our claims based on the different activities. So it's GAA activities, which is matches, training, club executive meetings, and then anything that isn't matches, trainings, or club executive meetings. So any fundraising activities, if you have handball courts and you have third-party users in them, whether that you receive a payment or not, that's not a GAA risk. The main one we'd see from handball clubs is racquetball users. They're not covered by our insurance. If there's racquetball users in your club, they need to be an affiliated club and they need to be giving you a copy of their valid insurance. And then employer's liability is basically from a legal perspective, whether a person is a scheme worker, paid, or a volunteer, if they're undertaking work on behalf of the club, they'd be considered an employee from an employer's from a liability perspective. So the employer's liability would cover that. We'd mainly see them in relation to scheme workers, or in GAA grounds, it would be the person who does the pitch work. So usually they're the type of claims that we see from the mowers or people going up on ladders and that type of thing. So if there is a liability claim, as I said, there's excesses which are payable once the claim is notified, indemnity confirmed by the insurers. It's €1,000 if the claim relates to matches, training, or club executive meetings, and it's €1,500 for everything else if it's when the property is used by a third-party event or from our fundraising activities. So you'll all have seen in the media press the highlighting of the excessive costs of insurance. I think most people in Muay Thai Rugby Club faced having to be closed because their insurance went up by so much. A lot of insurers have pulled out of the leisure industry, and we would fall into that because it's sports and leisure is kind of the insurers that operate in it. The personal injury claims awards in Ireland are 4.5 times higher than the UK. They're higher than everywhere else in Europe. You'll see some of the claims there that were against GAA clubs. Cool Camp, a little girl fell off a swing, 47,000 award. A footballer lost his finger on a fencing at an Astra pitch. The award was 145,000. I think we all saw the one about the Starbucks, 85 grand for getting scalded carrying a cup of tea. All of them are then plus the legal costs involved in defending that claim, investigating that claim. So there's quite a lot of costs there when a liability claim arises. Across our own 5-year claims experience, from 2014 to 2018, we incurred claims costs of 13 million, 5 of them related to actual GAA activities. The other 8 was related to our own fundraising activities or third-party users of our grounds. And the main one, as a large property owner, so the same as, Quilcher local authorities, the main claim that we see is slips, trips and falls. So in that same period, there was 177 claims where the cause of loss was a slip, trip and fall. They cost nearly 6 million. So it was an average annual cost of 1.2 million a year. And slips, trips and fall claims are easily avoidable if you have good systems of maintenance and upkeep. And if you have good systems of maintenance and upkeep and record keeping, you can challenge the claims. And that's entirely within our control across all of our GAA units. If we were able to better manage those type of claims, because other large property owners have gotten rid of those claims by having good records, and the courts are, with pressure and all that, are moving towards making the claimant prove their claim a bit more. So if in your properties you have a good system of maintenance and upkeep, you will minimise the risk of the claims arising. The main area that we see the slips, trips and falls claims coming are in the clubhouse on stairs, which I know with some of the viewing platforms in handball courts, the steps and handrails and having divisionary lips on the steps will be very important. Car parks would see a lot of claims. Pitches are here. Outdoor other would be just in the general area around, maybe more applicable to GAA clubs because we'd see it in the walkways and that. The toilets and the changing facilities, that would relate to spillages on grounds while they're going around. But mainly if we could have challenged them, if we had any sort of a system of maintenance and upkeep, or if we had good record keeping. So just how the personal injury claims process work is the injured party is called a claimant, and whoever they're holding negligent, so the handball club that they're saying the injury happened on your club or at your event and it's your fault, we'd be the defendant. So within the 26 counties, the injured party has 2 years to initiate their claim, and within the 6 they have 3. And in the case of a person who's under 18, a minor, their parents can bring the claim on their behalf until they turn 18, and then in their own right they can bring the claim for another 2 or 3 years after they turn 18. So with that 2 and 3 year period for them to initiate their claim, that's why the record keeping is so important. You can get a solicitor's letter for an incident that happened today on the 2nd of June 2022. So if we're not recording who's on our property or what activities we're doing, we're really on the back foot in trying to investigate allegations and in trying to defend them. And unfortunately, that's outside our control because that's how the legal process works. But we've gone through the stats, and if we are notified by a claim or a potential incident by a GAA unit first, rather than the claimant getting their version of events in first, the claims cost a lot less and we have way more chance of trying to defend them. So then within the 26 counties, the claimant must make their claim through the Personal Injuries Board, and that's in place to reduce the cost of claims. But in all instances, the injured party must prove how the GAA unit or GAA Handball Club was negligent in order to successfully obtain compensation. So any time that we can challenge claims or make somebody really work for whatever they're saying happened, make them prove everything, that reduces the cost of our claims, or they may not think that they're going to be on an easy number and get handy money out of the GAA. So it's very important that we record stuff and have records. I probably covered a bit of this, but why we struggle to defend and challenge claims is because we don't have good records. I understand we're all volunteers, and it's hard to get people to, do different things, never mind filling out paperwork. But if you do the health and safety system statement once, so it should just be your guide for how you run your club. If you have a regular record of who's going to be on the club, and just what's most important is if something does go wrong, that we gather as much information as we can at the time and try to build up a case. But if we investigate it and we know we're at fault, well, then we settle it sooner rather than it dragging out, because again, that minimises the cost. If you receive legal correspondence, don't ignore it. Don't pass it around the house. If you think it might be something to do with a GAA club or a lady club or a camogie club, you don't think it's yourselves, just pass it on to myself or Ciara or Mart, because it'll need to be responded to. Like, solicitors don't go away if they think they have a claim. To protect your own club, there is a GAA Health and Safety statement template which should be in place at every club, and you should be reviewing it annually. We're rolling out a Safe Club initiative with the Risk and Insurance Committee, the Health and Safety Committee and our brokers Marsh Ireland. It just got slightly put on hold because of COVID-19, because it involves some on-site visits in the next number of clubs to roll it out to. But when it is up and ready to go on the GAA e-learning website, I'm not sure if anybody has accessed this, but we will have a section there where we'll have learning videos, and it'll show you how to do a health and safety statement, how to do a ground inspection checklist, if something happens, how to do a claims defensibility, like how to gather the relevant information so that we have a chance of challenging claims should they come in. We should have, as I said, a good system of maintenance and upkeep at our properties. Like a lot of claims that come in from, potholes in car parks, handrails, not being in place, lights not on when people are coming out. So if you have sensor lights and they're on a summer schedule at the moment, make sure you change them to the winter schedule, that they're coming on earlier or later. There will be no cover if a club is not in compliance with the terms of the official guide. So your members are supposed to be registered by the 1st of January. Your executive members can't hold positions unless they are a current registered member. And really important is the adaptation of the code of behaviour with respect to working with underage, and that a club would have a child safeguarding statement in place that has been signed by the executive and is on display at the club premises. As I said already, if we have any incidents, notify them before they gather as much information as you can and send on the solicitor's letter or the personal injuries board correspondence as soon as you receive it. Like, don't leave it sit. Under the terms of the insurance, we can extend cover for most fundraising activities that would be common among clubs, but they need to be notified in advance. And the purpose of that is Ciara and I and the team in Marsh deal with every club in the country. All clubs in the country are working the same with limited volunteers and limited resources. So we've developed planning checklists to assist you, look at the risks, put controls in place and run a safe event. So if you run a safe event one year, hopefully you can build from that and have a more successful event the next year, and that you'll make money out of a fundraising event and be able to run the club from that. We don't want badly run events that are costing us claims and then you end up paying excesses and you haven't made any money out of the claim or out of the fundraising event. If anybody is doing, there's a lot of leader funding going around there at the moment. So if anybody is planning to do any development work or planning to buy any additional properties for expanding car parks or anything like that, just notify us in advance of that. And then we will vet the contractor's insurance and keep it on file. So if there was a problem with the property insurance, the property build when it's completed, we'd have the means to recover from the contractor on behalf of the club. And if it isn't notified in advance, we mightn't be able to put it on cover. I don't know if any handball clubs have scheme workers, or maybe they might be, if you're part of a GAA club, they might be assigned to the GAA club but work in the handball club. But we need to give you an extension of cover. And again, most of our employers' liability claims are from scheme workers because clubs think that the scheme is responsible for them, but it's not. There's actually two insurances in place. The club has a legal liability because you're getting them to do work on your property or you're giving them the tasks that they do, and then the scheme is responsible for training the person and giving you somebody competent. So just if anybody has that, you can contact myself and Ciara and we'll let you know what information we need, give you checklists again, and then we can extend the cover for the club. So I don't know if you can read that well, but just in relation to the normal fundraising activities that we would see coming in from clubs, it would be your Strictly Come Dancings, like in normal circumstances when we weren't locked down and social distancing, your lip sync battles, runs, walks and cycles, and we're seeing requests for them coming in now to be moved after the 20th of July. In the bag packing, usually if it's like Super Value or Duns, they might look for the club to give them proof of our insurance with an indemnity letter. So we'll arrange all that for you. The stuff that is excluded then is inflatables or hired amusements and any of those hell and back activity runs. We previously had cover, but then the claims experience was such that insurers had to withdraw it and the risk was just too high. So there is examples. We have a suite of planning checklists available to help you run a safe event, which hopefully will mean that you'll earn good funds from it. I'll just move on then to the property insurance. So again, in the affiliation that you pay to handball, it includes cover for your player injury fund and then the centrally placed property and liability insurance. So if there are any clubs who are paying a property or a liability insurance, you can email a copy of the policy that you're paying for to myself or Ciara. We'll have a review of it, and it is likely that you maybe don't need to be paying for that cover because you're already availing of it through your affiliations to GAA Handball. Under the property insurance, our 5-year property claims from 2014 to 19, we had like about 300 claims, which cost 8 million euros. In one of the years, I think it was 2017, Ciara, we were in July, we had like nearly 300,000 claims for the year. We were like, this is brilliant, we're going to have a great year. And then we had Storm Ophelia, Storm Gert, Storm everything else, Brian, and our claim, we got 2 million claims out of that period of storms that hit the country, because we have property in every 4 provinces of Ireland. If a storm hits somewhere, it's going to hit a GAA property, unfortunately. But we actually, touch wood, have had an okay claims experience for the last number of years, for the last 2 years on our property insurance. There's a property policy document available there on GAA.ie, which you can read. The perils on it, so it's called all risks, but like insurance, all risks doesn't mean everything is covered, but the perils are your kind of normal that you see in a house: fire, lighting, explosion, your storm damage. There's the names of the storms, escape of water. So in 2011 we would have had a lot of claims from properties where we had that big freeze over Christmas and St. Stephen's Day. Glass breakage, theft and break-in, and then subsidence on buildings. In general, it's a given on the policy that buildings are of standard construction, but if anybody has a property that's listed or in any way protected, you need to let us know about that before, and then we can just make sure that we can extend cover to it. On the property policy, like, property isn't a maintenance cover, so if there's damage at a property, and then when the loss assessors go out and they determine that the loss occurred due to a lack of regular maintenance and upkeep, property insurance won't pay for that. So you have a duty to maintain and upkeep your properties. And then it's like an unforeseeable loss, like a fire or lighting explosion. If that occurs and your property is destroyed, that's what the property policy is for. So the buildings are insured for reinstatement value. And this isn't applicable to most GAA clubs, but the max sum insured per location is 10 million. So because we write it on a central basis, at a club level, the highest sum insured is 10 million. So unless anybody has handball courts that are worth more than 10 million, you don't need to contact me. And then the contents are insured to 25% of the building. So if you have a building that's worth 100,000, your contents are insured for 25,000. But if you happen to have contents that you thought were higher than 25%, again, you would just need to contact us and let us know. So generally, we wouldn't really have clubs declaring their reinstatement value to us. It would only be when you're building a new building that you'll know exactly what your reinstatement value is. And then that's why we'd ask clubs to notify us anything that they're doing. There's a number of different excesses on the policy, but the standard one is it's 5,000 euro. So unfortunately, it is quite high, but it's high because of our claims experience and because we have so many locations. Every time we look with insurers at renewal about bringing that down, they fight with us because they want to bring it back up because they don't want a whole load of small claims. And then the claims experience going up. So it's 5. It's the one for 6 only really applies obviously to GAA clubs for the ball stop nets. But if you have, in relation to theft claims, a CCTV monitoring with live audio warning, so like Netwatch, the theft excess reduced to 1,000 euros. So just if clubs had new buildings and you were thinking of upgrading your security, there is a little saving there on the standard excess by putting those additional controls in place. The GAA, the health and safety statement, it includes an annual property checklist, and as I said, the video on that will be available in July via the GAA Learning. So because, as I mentioned, the highest cause of claims is slips, trips and falls, if our property is in good nick, maintained well, and the housekeeping is good, that's going to remove the risk of a lot of those liability claims. Also, our regular property tricks like not having debris lying around or old equipment, thrown around, that will minimize the fire risk, because of apart from storm damage, our largest losses under our property policy have all been as a result of fire damage where properties were totally destroyed. And it is easy to minimize spread of fire by just regularly checking and make sure your property is clean. Before we reopen, I understand the roadmap to reopening is due out within the next week, but we did send around the notes on the essential property checks, but water systems, before we'd let anybody back into dressing rooms or back into use or kitchen facilities or anything like that, the water systems, if you haven't been flushing them regularly to prevent the risk of Legionella, they'll need to be checked before anybody goes back into a property. If any club acquires any additional lands, or if you're planning any development works, they need to be notified to us so we can extend the cover for you. And there are risk assessments available, and they must all be in place where you have persons who are undertaking ground or property maintenance, because from a liability perspective, they can be considered employees. And you'll all know, like, the health and safety around workplace legislation is quite strict, so we can be found to be in breach of a lot and just give somebody a green card to get whatever compensation they think they're worth, when we don't have basic checks in place around our persons who undertake our ground maintenance and our property checks at the clubs. So who we work with, Ciara mentioned DWF, they do the injury fund, but Ciara would be handling the handball injury fund claims. But our insurance brokers are Marsh Ireland, and the contact email for Marsh for liability queries or to notify a potential property claim are there. The most queries we would see in would be if you're training in a school, the school will want to see a proof of our insurance, but they'll want their name noted on our policy. So you'd request that from Marsh. You can always request anything from myself and Ciara direct as well. And then Marsh should do that. Or if you have a third party coming in to use your property, you can send us in their insurance and we'll check that their insurance is okay for you. And then there are just the contacts for myself and Ciara, emails there and numbers if you want to contact us. So that was the presentation. I think I might have addressed most of the queries, but if anybody just wasn't clear on anything and you wanted to go ahead and ask your questions, we're open to taking queries there now. I know it's a lot of information. So the main thing is just for anyone who sent in that query about asking, was there a scheme? Do we have a central placement? There was one club who said they were paying $2,500 for insurance. If you're buying property or liability insurance, you don't need to be buying it separately. You're paying it as part of your affiliations to GAA Handball. So email the details of whatever you cover you have in place separately, and Ciara and I will review that, and then we'll confirm to you that you can cancel that insurance and that we have cover in place for you.
Sinead, would it be worth us working on a system of maintenance for the handball clubs?
As in doing up a checklist? Yeah, so we have one in the back of the existing health and safety statement, but I can tailor that to handball club. I can share that, and we can tailor the checklist that we have, and we'd obviously be best guided by yourselves, because you'd know what the maintenance is required for a handball court more than I would do.
Yeah. Well, that's something we can do and get up on our website as well.
Yeah, we can share all the standard documentation that we have, because we do it as a whole. For we would provide the same docs to ladies and camogie clubs, but ladies and camogie clubs don't usually own their own property. They're usually operating out of a GAA club, so they just ignore the bit that relates to property. But we could perhaps tailor the stuff for handball.
Very good. Anybody any questions?
Was it clear for people the difference between the injury fund and the insurance? Is that okay now? There was a lot of queries on that. Everybody's muted.
Yeah, that was all really clear. Thanks so much.
And we'll save this as a PDF and give it to Pádraig. I have it shared up in the Teams folder, but I'll share it again, and Pádraig can email it around to everybody. And if you don't want to ask a question in the wider format, our contact information is there, so you can email myself or Ciara directly, and we'll get back to you.
Sinead, I have a quick question. Just have the GAA ever considered like a private insurance for covering the likes of players? A lot of players would tend to be self-employed, and if they do get hurt, unless they have their own private insurance, waiting on other insurances to pay out takes quite a bit of time.
Yeah, no, we have. We've done multiple meetings. Ciara in her previous role in Willis, and since she's joined the GAA with multiple providers, we weren't able to get anybody who would do all Ireland. And what they're providing, it wasn't going to sit before the injury fund. They wanted the injury fund to pay and then to top up. Whereas then the benefits weren't working. And when we looked at replacing the injury fund, Ciara will know this, we looked at replacing the injury fund with an insurance product, we couldn't get any better benefits, because you're talking, like, if you to buy a basic health insurance policy, you're talking at least €1,300 per person a year for that. Income protection is quite reasonable, but we haven't gotten anybody who would write something that would suit. And previously we had one that was offered, and Ciara,
we had to top up to the injury fund, but it was only on a 10% take up and then it was got rid of. So that's why previously the the injury fund would have only covered medical expenses, for example, up to 2,550, and then players could buy an additional top up to cover them for an additional 2,550. It effectively doubled the benefits, but there was only a 10% uptake on it. There was a loss made by the insurer involved, and that set the grain against us then in seeking to buy a wider cover. So we promote the injury fund, which we, in all intents purposes, don't have to provide that, but that's what we do, and that's the decision has been taken just to maintain that for the moment.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you.
So, and usually any of the providers of those policies that we go to, they want the 500,000 members to sign up to it. And we can't make something compulsory on members, and most don't want to buy it. But when we only had 10% compliance the last time, it wasn't economically viable for the insurer, so they don't want to do it. I just see a question there from Pádraig. Just the GAA club. So you're paying your liability insurance, property insurance, and player injury fund via your affiliations to GAA Handball. Some GAA clubs also ask for a contribution for use of facilities if you don't have your own facility. They may label that as insurance because it's easier to say that. But if a claim arose on a GAA ground and the claim was at a handball activity, a ladies activity, or a camogie activity, we apply. The excess is payable by the handball, ladies, or camogie, and when we're allocating out the premium, the claims experience goes against how much we charge handball, ladies, or camogie. It doesn't go against the GAA unit. So when you're paying your fees to GAA Handball, it's property, liability, and player injury that you're paying for. Does that make sense, Pádraig?
Yeah. So that came in from the clubs there. So.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Running a small handball stroke racquetball club with the limited number of members, and we just charge them all the same fee and send on the money to yourselves. So are you saying that the racquetball element of that they're not covered? No,
racquetball isn't a GAA sport. So our sports are football, hurling, handball, camogie, and rounders.
So we've been working under a false...
Well, you can charge them a membership if you want. They could be a club member, but they're not covered by our injury fund, and our liability insurance doesn't cover racquetball as a sport. So there is a Racquetball Ireland Association, and they can join that and get liability insurance under that.
Yes, you know, if the same thing would apply if we were to run it as a racquetball club, then would we be insured as GAA as racquetball clubs?
No, there's a Racquetball Ireland Association, so it's same in like GAA clubs who have running tracks. That's an Athletic Ireland's club who would be using that, and they're affiliated to Athletics Ireland. So racquetball isn't a GAA sport; it's not covered by our insurance. And if they want to use it, they're a third-party user. They have to have their own insurance. Just there from Clive, checking that visiting members are insured. Like, I don't know if you check membership numbers before competitions. You know,
Austin.
No, Sinead.
So from an injury fund perspective, you as the home club hosting a competition, you don't need to check that people are members or not. Their club who's allowing them compete needs to. If they're not a registered member, they're not going to be covered by Player Injury Fund. If they're not a registered member and their club let them pay, their club won't be indemnified by liability insurance. And that would be the same for GAA clubs, ladies or camogie clubs. There's membership rules to be an affiliated unit. So if you're letting people play when they're not registered members, then you're not going to be covered liability, and they're not covered from they're not going to be covered by the injury fund either. And just
yeah, that's grand.
And just a question there from Clodagh. So as I was saying, in the liability insurance, you're either a property owner or a handball club, or you're both. So if you don't own a property and you're using a community centre, then our insurance extends to our legal liability while we're using somebody else's property. So be that a community hall or be that a school. So again, your members have to be registered members to be covered by the injury fund, and the liability insurance is there for the club, that if somebody's injured while they're there for our club event on somebody else's property, they would sue both people, the handball club and the community centre, and then depending on what the cause of the claim was, will decide which insurance pays for it. And if you're using a community centre, there's a liability broker declaration on GAA.ie, or you can get it from myself and Ciara, and we can give the indemnity to the school or the community hall if you're using them. So the liability covers that. Handball. The question there from James might be one for Boric. The confirmation email or receipt.
Sinead, it's us. Neil, I'll answer that one.
Yeah.
Okay. James. Okay, we only send out the confirmation email whenever the membership fees have been paid. In the documentation that goes out with the membership forms, it confirms clearly that the membership is not fully compliant until the fees have been paid. So we only confirm when the fee is paid, because then you're a registered member.
And we would check if a claim comes into Ciara for the injury fund, or if a liability claim solicitor's letter arrives on my desk, we'll be checking with GAA Handball that your affiliations are up to date and that your member, whoever's identified on the injury fund or that, is an actual current registered member. If they're not, then the insurance won't extend or the injury fund won't extend.
Thanks. Yeah, Park, I might follow up with you on that just in case there is a miscommunication there.
Yep, no problem.
Thanks.
I don't know if there's anything else. There was a question just about clubs being vested or not. The property owner's liability, like if a property is invested, then you wouldn't have the full benefits of it would be a third party property that the club would be using, the same as it being a community hall or it being a school. So the trustees of an unvested property, if they happen to be your club members, they need to make sure that they have their own liability insurance in place for being trustees of that land and being a property owner in respect of that land, because our insurance won't extend to them. It's only for affiliated units, and it's only in respect of trustees of properties that are vested. But the club can use the unvested land and you'll have cover as a club using it, but it's the trustees who may have an exposure. And if they are your members, you'd need to get them to check that they have that they have a second cover in place.
Good. Any more questions, folks, before we finish up?
Is there insurance cover specifically for club officers?
It's just getting hard to hear that, whoever's speaking.
Yeah.
As I said, is there insurance cover for club officers?
There's directors and officers cover in place, and the cost of that is borne by Central Council. It's not billed out to affiliated units. We've never had a claim under directors and officers policy, but if something does happen, that could be considered a directors and officers claim, there is cover there, but the main claims we see are under the public liability. So they're slips, trips and falls in grounds, somebody attending a fundraising event and getting injured in some way, or damage to property caused by our actions, and that's what the liability insurance is. So the trustees of your club are the legal representatives, and they would be sued. They would be named on proceedings in the event of a public liability claim. The liability insurance responds to that. And we've never seen a directors and officers claim in my 10 years, or I think in the 10 years since the central placement has been in place, but there is additional cover there. Just in relation to the school there, Colin, so our liability insurance covers our coaches going in to do training in clubs, and when it's a school activity, I think like 99% of schools have schools personal accident. So we have liability insurance, as Ciara covered in the injury fund. There's no legal obligation to provide personal accident cover for somebody who plays sport. So they play at their own risk. If they're injured, in most events, they'll have a school's personal accident. But if the parent decides that they're going to sue because they think we didn't supervise the training session properly, the public liability cover will be in place for that. And that's mainly what we would see in underage activities. The allegation will be lack of supervision, or very rarely something to do with a child welfare complaint, not at the extreme end, but people will throw around child welfare a lot in allegations. So does that make sense? The injury fund is an insurance, so it's not applicable except to our own registered members participating in GAA organised events, whereas the liability insurance is in place for coaches the whole time, whether you're coaching in a school or coaching in a club. And then the participants can sue under the liability insurance if they feel we were some way negligent in causing them to be injured during that training session. Does that make sense, Colin? Oh yeah, thanks.
He's on the ball.
Yeah. It's easy to be daunted by it and not know what it is, but the injury fund is just there. It's a personal accident cover. We don't have to provide it, but if somebody is injured playing our games, there's benefits available to them. But the liability insurance protects you in respect of everything you might organise as a handball club. So matches, training, challenge matches, they're all, you as a property owner, but to protect yourself, if somebody's coming into our grounds, get insurance off that person, like the racquetball clubs. If you're organising a fundraising event, notify us, we'll extend the cover and we'll give you the best practice guidance so you can run a safe event and minimise something going wrong. But the policy is in place to cover the normal activities that a GAA club, handball, rounders, football or hurling would undertake.
Very good. Is that everybody? Everyone seems happy enough. So folks, that's it for week 4. I want to say a huge thanks to Sinead and Ciara. Yeah, Sinead and Ciara. I suppose a lot of very good information there tonight, folks. I suppose don't worry if you don't remember it all. We'll work closely with Sinead and Ciara. We'll get it all up on our website, and we'll get as much information emailed out as we can, because it's, as you see, that was the most questions we've had since we started up. So obviously it's a very key area. So again, thanks very much to Sinead and to Ciara. I suppose the show goes on next week. We have